He spent 19 seasons at the side of legendary college basketball coach Gene Keady before becoming a head coach himself. Bruce Weber started at Southern Illinois, moved on to Illinois, and in 2012, after leaving Champaign, he ended up at Kansas State when John Currier picked him to replace Frank Martin. 7 seasons into his time in Manhattan, and Weber settled into a pretty good thing. 2 Big 12 championships, an Elite 8 run, and a new team this season that will mean a little bit of rebuilding for Kansas State's coach. Here is the Power Chat, sponsored by Blue Mark Energy, with K-State basketball coach Bruce Weber. Welcome to another edition of the Power Chat, sponsored by Blue Mark Energy here at the WTC Gig Powered Studios. Coach Bruce Weber. Coach, thanks for making time. We should set the table here that this will air later, but K-State hasn't played a game yet. So we'll talk a little bit about this team, but really I just kind of want to cover the gamut of Bruce Weber and what brought you to K-State, everything leading up. First, something personal. You know, when I was diagnosed, I received a number of texts, but one of the first ones I received was from you, and I want to thank you personally. That was really, really nice. It was cool.
I'm glad you're doing okay, and hopefully a cancer survivor. Our Coaches Association does a great job with Coaches versus Cancer, and you know, it means a lot to me. It's obviously it's affected you, but it affects so many people, and you know, just in this last 2 or 3 weeks, I have coaching buddies. I have my former AD, Jim Hart, the quarterback. He just had a cancer surgery. I mean, it just seems like it's a contagious epidemic right now. But we keep fighting, battling, raising money, and hopefully you're a survivor that we can keep celebrating birthdays.
I know, exactly. I've touched base with Coaches versus Cancer because I've got a new nonprofit about prostate cancer, get involved, and I've spoken with Jeff Jones about it because he too is a prostate cancer survivor, and it's flared back up on him, and hope Coach is doing well. Grew up in Milwaukee. What was Milwaukee like in the 60s, 70s?
Well, there were the riots. You were talking about the picture up there, Aggieville riots, but it was a little different. It was obviously the racial type riots, and I remember that as a young, growing up, and we actually we had to stay in our house. Wow. And you could not leave your house. Now, after 2 or 3 days, we were going stir crazy, and we drifted 2 blocks to the playground in the park and played, and we probably weren't supposed to at that time, but it's a great place to grow up. And, for us, it's a big city, but it's not too big. It's easy to get around. My mom, I would take a freeway flyer bus and go to the Brewers game and sit in the bleachers. It was $1 for the bus, $2 for the bleachers. We'd bring snacks. We go to doubleheaders. Now awesome. You would never let a 10-year-old, 12-year-old go on his own on the bus. I went downtown Milwaukee to Milwaukee Bucks games, and they literally charged $1. They were an expansion team. There were 10 games that were Buck games, and you were in the top row of it if you got the tickets. But we really figured out how to sneak down. There was always these 2 seats open, and by the end of the second quarter, I was about 4 rows behind the basket every game. So that was fun. From the Packers, it's Vince Lombardi.
That's amazing.
The Bucks, it's Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with Oscar Robertson, and then the Brewers, Robin Yount, all those guys. So a lot of great memories. And then Al Mcguire was probably, my favorite of all time. And Al would actually open up practice. He'd have practice on Friday and Saturday night, so his guys couldn't go out. He would start at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
How would that go over now?
And it was open to the public. And I saw Al get in a fight with Bernard Toon, a fist fight. I saw him driving on a motorcycle. I saw a bunch of stuff. And later on, obviously, he became an announcer, and I worked his camps and got a chance to know him a little better. But some great sports memories and growing up.
How did Al Mcguire kind of shape you want to get into coaching? Because that's interesting.
It was more probably my dad, and obviously my older brother Ron is in the Wisconsin High School Hall of Fame. My younger brother David's already in the Illinois High School Hall of Fame. I was involved in coaching. My sisters, teachers and coaches, everyone. My dad came over on a boat from Austria when he was young. When Hitler started going, my grandpa said, "We're out of here." And, you got to give him a lot of credit. And they ended up in Milwaukee. My dad got involved in sports, but education, because of that transition from another country, didn't really get to go to college. So that was his big thing, that all 5 kids were going to college. And then he was pretty tough, and he just said, "You're all going to be teachers and coaches." And that's what we were, and we all enjoyed it. And my first job was 5th grade teacher, and I coached at high school basketball, started out that first year or so, and then had a whim and wanted to be a college coach. And about 40-some years later, here we are.
What did your dad do for a living?
He actually, worked for a Heil company. If you drive, anytime you see a big dump truck or a garbage truck, and you look at the back, it says Heil, H-E-I-L, and he was a sales rep for them. But at night, he had to work same job, 5 kids. He didn't make a whole bunch of money. He ran rec leagues. He ran the baseball parks. Very, very involved with the Milwaukee Public School recreation. Ran a program. Him and a famous coach in Wisconsin, Tom Desatel, started the Whiz Kid basketball team. It was kind of AAU before AAU. Yeah. And I played for the Whiz Kids and growing up in middle school, and later on there were Whiz Kid camps that I worked, and so he was, even the day he passed of a massive heart attack, he had been working at a ball field and opened it up, and that was his thing. And he loved life, he loved sports, he loved people, and it's just sad that when my mom passed, one of the last things she said, we were going to actually taking Illinois to the national championship game that time. She passed away at the Chicago United Center, the Big Ten tournament. She had a heart attack. Oh. But that few days before that, she just said, "I wish your dad could see what you guys have all done." My brother was winning a state championship in Illinois that year. We went to the national championship, and then my older brother Ron has had a great career, and he's still coaching. He's actually, now he's assistant for his son.
Wow.
Stoughton High School in Wisconsin. He's retired 3 times for coaching. I keep telling him he's Michael Jordan of coaching. He keeps coming back, but he just loves it, and he's coaching JV basketball and assistant for his son, and staying involved. So it's part of our life.
When you're a coach, it's really neat that you get to your level now, but a coach is a coach. You just like the things that coaches do.
You just love sports, and you love people and being around him in basketball. My wife, anytime our family gets together, she goes, "Do you ever talk about anything else?" And it's just kind of, it is our life, and it's been, and and again, it was my dad. My sisters, even though they were involved in sports, they kind of, they went crazy because my dad, that's all we did. We were in the alley playing basketball. We went to the park playing baseball or football. Even in, we had a hallway, we had a basement. We were playing basketball in the hallway when we were young. We did wiffle ball tournaments in the basement. That's what, you listen to a Brewer game. Somebody said, "What'd you do on spring break?" In Milwaukee, we listened to the Brewer games because they were opening, and you were playing wiffle ball because it was too cold to go outside still. So, that's kind of just how we grew up.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. You end up going to Western Kentucky. I love this story, how you ended up there. Go through that again.
Well, I just, like I said earlier, I had a whim. I wanted to be a college coach. Some of it I had going to Mcguire's practices. I had the chance, before Nike started all the clinics, basketball coaching clinics, Medalist Industries, which Al Mcguire was part of, they ran clinics all over the country. And I had a chance to go take notes for the clinics with a coach. And I actually got to walk with John Wooden. I'm 19 years old. I'm taking notes. And Coach Wooden said, young man, you like to walk early in the morning. I really didn't, but I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I walked with Coach Wooden at 6 a.m. I still remember Marriott parking lot in Louisville, Kentucky, and walk with him and listen to him. But just, I just had a whim, so I applied to every place. And now as a head coach, we get so many letters from people, and we have a generic letter that we respond. I hate that we do that, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
we get so many letters, you don't have time. I try to handwrite notes to fans and that, but I don't have the time to do that to every person that applies. But I thought, and I applied to grad school everywhere I got in, I thought somebody's going to take me. Well, it just happens in the summer, my brother, my younger one, was being recruited. Bob Gottlieb, who Doug is his son. Bob was the coach at Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where I went. And he was recruiting my brother. And at that time, there were no rules. He'd come to our house anytime. My dad and him became buddies. And he said, what do you want to do? And I was coaching high school and teaching 5th grade. So I want to be a college coach. I want to get a grad assistant. And he said, well, I just hired the Western Kentucky GA. And I know Gene Cady because of Eddie Sutton. Coach Gottlieb had worked for Eddie at Creighton. And then Coach Cady had worked for Arkansas. So he called him. And so Coach Cady said, come down and interview. I drove 9 hours, took off. I was working camps. Drove 9 hours. I still remember, and I had my leisure suit on. I was looking good. I was sweating underneath that thing, and walked in the office, and Ann Handy was the secretary. I said, I'm here to see Coach Cady. And she goes, he's not here. Very abrupt and rude. And I said, well, when's he getting back? I'll wait. And he's not going to be, he's not only not here, he's not in the country. He had a last-second chance to go to the Pan Am Games with somebody, and he's gone. And I said, well, I had an interview today. And, well, you'll have to come back. And I just drove 9 hours. I had never driven 9 hours in my life. Got back in the car. I'm just crushed. And so about a week later, I called back. I'm working camp at Marquette University High School. Put quarters in the payphone. No cell phones or long distance.
Of course not.
And, called, and I said, Coach Cady, it's Bruce Weber. I was there. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about it. He said, can you come down this week? And I actually was working camps for Rick Mcguire at the time. I'm running the camp. I can't leave, Coach. Either you hire me or not. And it was real quiet. And obviously, if I would have known Coach Cady at the time, I would have been so intimidated. I would have never said that. But it went silent on the phone. And I just sat there, and finally he goes, all right, be down here on whatever date.
I could hear him.
And that was it. And the crazy thing, my first day there, my mom and dad helped me move down. We get down, we're all in a hotel. All of us are, I'm laying on the floor, and I'm supposed to move in the next day. And we get a call from my older sister. My younger sister got killed in a car wreck that night. So I never had met Coach Cady. She was 13 months younger than I was. And so we were kind of twins, very close. I broke out in hives. So I go to Coach Cady. I have hives. You're stressed. And I said, I'm Bruce Weber. And he's looking at me. I said, I got some bad news. My sister got killed last night when I arrived, and I got to leave. But the crazy thing is, I had never met him. Then I was with him for 19 years, and so much part of his life. And we're at Western. We win the OVC. We get in the NCAA tournament. He gets the Purdue job. I could have stayed with Clem Haskins at Western. He asked me to stay, but to go to Purdue, I was the third person at Purdue at that time. They had the 2 full-times, and it was called a part-time. And I'm going. I didn't care. I tell our players all the time. My first year, I made $2,000 for the year, $200 a month. I was on food stamps. The next 2 years, I made $4,000 at Purdue. Coach Cady said, I got you a big raise. I doubled the salary, so $400 a month. So and that's 10 months. So what do you do the other 2 months? But at that time, you could recruit as a grad assistant, and I just went on the road the whole time. And then finally, if I was going to stay in the business, I had to get married. And And my wife, she gets mad at me, but I said, will you marry me and can you send me some money? I need new tires. And so we got married. She had a job, and it's a true story. She'll tell you. She had a job as a registered nurse, and so we got married, and she helped support us, for a while so I could get through. And then some things happened. I moved up. I was the youngest assistant in the Big Ten for quite a while. And, it just all transpired. I was going to be the coach at Purdue. We got a new AD, new president. They said, we're not going to give you the job. You got to go prove yourself. And I knew he was going to retire, so I took Southern Illinois. And a year later, 9 months later, they called me back and said, come back and be his coach in waiting. But I met with Coach every year at the Final Four, and I'd say, are you ready? And if he wasn't ready within a year, and he didn't want to retire even when he did. And so I wasn't going to be the guy to push him out. And we got going. It was nice to be a head coach. And so, we got something going pretty good at Southern Illinois. And so we just kind of, stayed there. And then Illinois popped up, and the Purdue people were mad, but I didn't have a choice. No. I wasn't going to push Coach out. And, or be the guy sitting there, you got to get Weber or whatever. But, just unbelievable time, whether it was Western and Kentucky or that Southern Illinois, Purdue, our days there are unbelievable. We still have great friends there, and even Illinois. I had unbelievable run and but very fortunate to be here and happy.
Certainly not comparing what your father did, fleeing Europe to end up in Milwaukee, getting on a boat. But there's something to be said about a young guy hopping in a car. By the way, what kind of car was it?
It was my brother's. It was my brother's.
Put miles on your brother's car.
I would have never. My brother was a full-time teacher, so he actually had a decent car. I had one without power steering that time, and so so he got to use his car because mine would have never made it down there.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean that took a lot of guts.
Yeah, I was all my family. My dad's, my mom, no one had left. I was the first person to leave. My cousins, I just went up and received the award in Milwaukee, and all my cousins, they're all still there. Everyone stayed there. Actually, I left, and then my sister ended up in Chicago, and which isn't too far. She got married, her husband, and my brother's one's in Chicago, but the rest, a lot of the Webers and the Protzmans are all still in Milwaukee, and they love it. And even my buddies that they didn't leave. It's a place you ask about Milwaukee. It's a place people love, and they don't leave.
I've heard it's a beautiful town. I really want to visit. Southern Illinois. What was it about that job? Was it just the job that was there at the time?
It's kind of a job at the time. And I applied. It wasn't like I didn't apply a lot of places. One, I was very young at that time. If you go back, Billy Donovan was the first young guy to get a job. But before, if you weren't 30, 35 to 40, you weren't going to get a job. It was just, even the assistants were 40 years old. And it just started changing. Billy got that job at Marshall at 30 or 32 or whatever. Patino got a job. It was all that. That's, getting those younger guys. And Coach Katie knew Jim Hart, obviously an unbelievable quarterback, Hall of Famer, with the Cardinals. And something, it just worked out. And, he hired me. And I didn't know how bad a shape it was. And when I got there, I got the job on May 15th, and we had 5 players. And it was they didn't tell me all the info.
How do you have 5 players?
Well, they were trying to get the former coach, Rich Herron, who's a famous coach and did unbelievable things there. They were going through trying to get him to retire, and it just kind of got stalemate. And Matt Painter, myself, Alan Major, who became the head coach at Charlotte. We worked 9 in the morning till midnight, 11:30 every day. I left my wife and family in West Lafayette. I said, we got to get players. And it was a mess. It was, we had no cars because the car dealers took the cars because they were mad because Rich had to retire. So this is a true story. We used the secretary's car when kids came to visit because she had a nice car and she'd let us use it so we could show them around campus.
That's incredible.
Oh, ask Matt Painter. We have some unbelievable stories that Rodney Watson was riding a bike, and one day I got a call at the office. And the person said, Rodney Watson's going to be late. I said, who is this? And Rodney's now the head coach at Southern Indiana. they said, well, we just drove by Rodney and his bike broke down on Highway 13 and he's walking, so I think he's going to be late. So
why don't you pick him up? If you know who it was.
I don't know. It's just
so funny.
But that's the great things, and you know, you look at it. We were in NIT 2 years later. We were Sweet 16 4 teams later, and a lot of good things happened. And very fortunate to have Matt as assistant, Alan. You know, and we got some good players. I guess that helps.
I remember that team that went to the Sweet 16, and it kind of struck me as you were on that cutting edge of the kind of teams that snuck into there and were the big national storyline right when the NCAA tournament's really growing into something. And here's the little school, that busted through with the big guys. I remember that whole thing and how big of a deal it was.
Oh, it was huge. CBS came with us back on our flight, and they stayed in Carbondale for a whole week and doing stories about us. And, we were kind of off the map, and then all of a sudden on the map. And 5 straight years, we won the Missouri Valley, but we never won the tournament. So we got 5 straight years. Myself, 2, Matt Painter, and then Chris Lowry. 5 in a row, we won the league. And got at-large bids, which, when you think about mid-majors at this day and age, it wouldn't happen. But at that time, the Valley, we had a year where we got 4 teams in, 1 in the NIT.
The Valley was really good back
then.
Yeah,
it was, it's Greg McDermott, it's Kevin Stallings, Jim Cruz. You had some really, really good coaches, and they Doug Elgin, the commissioner of the Missouri Valley, he's still there. Did a great job and really helped us as a league.
Yeah, that was an incredible time. And as you're in these Sweet 16, are you looking around thinking, well, 4 years ago I didn't have players? It's got to be kind of crazy how far you came.
The good story, we're all sitting there, we're playing at the Dome in Syracuse, and we're waiting to get in, the open practice. And the players are all like laughing, and I'm like, what's the matter, guys? And they said, look, Coach. And they got the banners. It was Kentucky, Maryland, and Connecticut, and then us. And they said, Coach, we're not supposed to be here. And I said, we're here. We better enjoy it. And Connecticut beat us, and they had Ben Gordon and that was the year Maryland won it. And they beat Kentucky, and then Maryland beat UConn and went to the Final Four and ended up winning it. But we gave them a go. We pushed them. They were just too good. They had, I think, 6, 7 guys played in the NBA off that team.
Yeah, not real fair.
And we didn't have much chance.
Not real fair. And then you end up at Illinois, and that had to be kind of I don't want to say a cultural shock, but going back to the Big Ten and all the pressure being in that Chicago circle of influence, it had to be really strange.
Yeah, and I've told a lot of people, it's probably one of the most stressful college jobs in the country. I know Kentucky, but you don't have the Chicago media market in Kentucky.
No.
And you got Louisville right there, and that's the bigger city, so I argue with Ben Holland all the time when he was at UCLA, and I've known Ben forever. My brother worked with him, which was tougher, UCLA or, I said, UCLA, they got movie stars, the Lakers, the Dodgers, all this, and it just, and when, it was a tough job, but it was a good job. The problem was, they were so worried about recruiting these kids and, the Chicago kids, and it always didn't work. And, hindsight, I think I would have done one thing. And Bill Self did it, actually. He had Billy Gillespie, who was a Texas guy. I would have had one coach out of the region. So when you couldn't get guys or there weren't players in your region, you still could have got some guys. Darren Williams was from Texas. We had 3 kids from Texas on that team that went to the national championship, mixed in with the Illinois guys. And, hindsight, you always look back, you always critique yourself. I think that's one thing I maybe would have done a little different, because they wanted you to recruit the kids there. And the Big Ten, because there's such a big population base, they are very regional recruiters. And they get those kids. I saw Jabari Parker in 5th grade. I went to his game. He came to our camp. I saw kids, Glenn Robinson, 8th grade. I mean, you saw these kids early and you brought them in, and sometimes they worked out. Glenn Robinson's a pretty good story. Jabari Parker's a pretty good story. And then other times the publicity didn't work out.
Kids speak.
Yeah, they got full of themselves, and then they didn't realize they got to work at the game, and all the attention. You know, Chicago papers are writing about 8th graders.
Yeah,
and it's not healthy. It's not good for the kids, but you know, if you get a well-rounded person like Jabari Parker, he can survive it. His dad was an NBA player. But some of the other kids, they can't.
There's no place in high school basketball like the subculture of Chicago high school basketball. It's so important to the town, to the culture, to everything. It's kind of its own little world, and it just can be a strange world.
It's interesting. It really is, and a lot of problem too was academics. A lot of times the kids didn't have the grades, so you recruited them and worked them, and then they didn't have grades, and so you had that issue too to deal with. So, you know, it's still a great place, great fans. The other part of it is that in Chicago, there is no loyalty to Illinois. It's such a hodgepodge.
Sure.
People come from all over the world. The reason they have the Big Ten tournament there, they have some stat, how many alumni are from each school. It's astronomical, you know, that live in Chicago, Penn State or Minnesota or whatever. They you know, because of there's 7 million, 9 million people, whatever in the area, you have all those people. But it's south of I-80, it is loyal to Illinois. And you got, you know, great people and great fans, so you had to deal with that part of it also.
That second team you have, you made an incredible run. You lose to Ohio State in the regular season. Yeah. That had to stink.
Well, and I think it ended up good. We led for 39 minutes and 52 seconds in that game. And they hit a 3 to beat us, and they had nothing to play for. They were on probation. It was the last game of the year. But I think it helped us. I think there was so much pressure because, I mean, every day. I mean, it was USA, New York Times, ESPN was there, Fox was there. I mean, you have no idea. We'd go to a movie theater with the team, and we literally had to sneak in the back because people would wait autographs. The hotels, we would go underneath the hotels and come up the elevators because of the craziness of that team. We were undefeated. Illinois, the crazy, you know, you talked about Chicago basketball. A basketball was going for $500 that was signed. People would wait outside our practice facility and get basketballs, you know, signed by our guys. And it got to a point one week I told our sports information guy, no, we are doing no interviews. And you tell, those guys hugged me. They were so happy. You know, you want the attention, but then when it comes,
it'd be overwhelming.
You have no life.
Be a distraction. Make it to the title game. You lose to a very good North Carolina team. What do you remember of that game?
Well, our big guy, James Augustine, only played 8 minutes.
Yeah. That stinks. What is it with you and big men getting injured for the tournament?
Well, he wasn't injured. He had foul trouble.
Oh, okay.
He got his 4th foul, and he had only played like 3-4 minutes, and I told our coaches just leave him in. Before I could turn, he got his 5th foul. And people still, I mean, I see Illinois people in the airports and all, and they still talk about the game. But Sean May played unbelievably. He had his best game of his career, I think. And but we had three shots to tie it or win it, and we just didn't do it.
So I'm struck by this as I was doing research. That game was in the Dome in St. Louis, and that loss probably sticks with Illinois fans.
Oh.
That's where Kansas State lost the 1998 Big 12 championship in football in that same dome.
Yes.
I was looking at it, I'm like, you got to be kidding.
Well, and then I go back, obviously, Purdue. We lose to Mitch Richmond, and who we had beaten Lon's team. And Kansas, then, you know, Danny Manning, they end up, but we're the 1 seed.
You're the 1 seed.
And we were really, really good. And we had beaten Kansas State by 20 or more in December. And it just we were up 10-0 to start the game, and we went on a 10-0 run to start the second half. And Mitch banked in a top of the key 3-pointer. I still remember it. And our guys I don't think they ever. That team was really good. And, they didn't think they were going to lose, and all of a sudden, we're in trouble. And you know, Steve Henson, they were pretty good too, and Lon did a great job. And you know, but I'm not. Could we beat Danny Manning? And boy, I don't know. They were.
That was a weird
season. Team of destiny. So.
That was a weird season. I know they weren't very good for most of the year, and then KU turned it on. I remember that time you beat K-State before Christmas, and then K-State went into the holiday break when you can spend more time with the kids, and the team completely changed.
Yeah.
It was kind of a coaching lesson for me about how valuable that point of the season can be when you get them out of class and you just got them.
We always talk about that time because you can go 2 a days, not to kill them, but to teach them and get shooting in and critique stuff and make some strides. And I always say to them, this is your chance to be an NBA player because you have no class for about 25, 30 days, and it's just all about basketball. And if you love it and you got kids that want to make progress, you can make big progress.
One final thing before we take a break, the Custard Cup. What is it about this place? Give your sales pitch for the Custard Cup.
It's the best custard around. I'm just telling you. But it's been there forever. It's in Champaign, Illinois,
right.
And my lawyer, after I left, it was going out of business, or the family wanted to sell it and close it, and it's like places here, Vista in Manhattan or whatever. It'd been there forever, and my lawyer said, hey, we don't want this to die, and he asked myself, Ron Turner, former coaches, a lot of former players, and we all invested in it, and it's done well, and it's still doing well, and it's a neat little thing and great to be part of it. I actually make money off it, so it's okay.
What's your go-to order?
I'm great with the Almond Joyful. They have a concrete. They do the concretes or the blizzards or whatever, but I love the Almond Joyful, the coconut and the almonds and the chocolate with the vanilla ice cream. It's to die for. I haven't had one in a long time, but
that's solid. Now I'm hungry. We're going to take a break, and we'll end on that joyful note as we revisit the Power Chat right after this. We continue the Power Chat with Coach Bruce Weber joining us here in the WTC Gig Powered Studios. Coach, we got you up to your arrival at Kansas State. You leave Illinois. That just kind of got ugly at the end of Illinois, didn't it? Just with the fans. And,
it was more the athletic director. He's new AD, and he came in, he fired everybody. Football coach, women's basketball coach. Women's basketball coach came to me, and she was crying. She goes, I got fired. He didn't even tell me. I was even in trouble, and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to get fired, and my record's way better than yours, so you have to get fired. I felt horrible, to be honest, and it just, we got a new president, new AD. People have no idea. I never talked to the AD. I had like one meeting in 9 months. So Coach Zook kept calling me, and they started 6-1 or something. He goes, man, has that guy called you or talked? And like, no, he hasn't.
Weird.
And they wanted something different, and it was what it was. And obviously then you get Chicago media, what you talked about, involved, and it was sad, and but it's part of life, and good things happen, and happen for a reason. I really believe that, but it was probably harder. It's hard on me, but it was really hard on my family. And you want to stay at a place. My goal and dream was to be like Coach Katie, stay at Purdue, Tom Izzo, stay at Michigan State. Stay there. But in this medium, in this day of social media, and that it's tough. It's tough to stay at a place, and with the athletic directors. And presidents changing so much, you don't get that probably loyalty that you used to have.
And you're on the job market for not a very long time. How did you end up connecting with John Currier?
I actually had probably 4 offers within a week or so. But John, when it opened up, Coach Katie called me right away, and I think he had called Ernie Barrett and some of the other, and said, you better hire Weber or whatever, and all this stuff. And but it was interesting. John used some Dave Odom and some other, like a group that they, help with the process. And, they all tell me I was the one that everyone suggested right away. I met with John in Chicago, and, for like a whole afternoon. And I thought it went well, but he said it was going to go for a while. He was going to meet with people at the Final Four. And then other jobs started opening up, and I had some interviews, and and then I think I guess he saw that maybe he needed to make a move if he was going to do it, and so they kind of flew Kirk Schultz into New Orleans, and I had a kind of emergency meeting there. I actually had to cancel another interview that day just to meet with them, and they offered it, and they said, we're flying to Manhattan tomorrow. I called my wife. I said, we're going to Manhattan. And she said, New York. And I said,
she
no.
did.
And I said, no, we're going to Manhattan, Kansas. And do you have anything purple to wear? And she just laughed, but we picked her up and flew in and had the press conference. And, that's kind of how it all worked, I guess. But nothing's easy, but it was very fortunate to be here. And we've created a lot of great friendships and, just feel good about having the chance to be part of K-State. And I know Coach Katie's very proud because he loves K-State.
He does.
It's his pride and joy, and he grew up in Larned, Kansas, and he loved the Wildcats, and he'll tell stories of coming to these, games in some of these places and stuff. So he's always cheering. And then just his admiration for Coach Snyder, is just. And then when I got here and found out, all the story, you knew it from the outside a little bit. But as you got the book of A Miracle in Manhattan, it's amazing what Coach has done here.
Yeah, it really is. Were you conscious of the day you were hired of the people outside picketing about the hiring?
Somebody talked about it. Again,
that was one of the strangest things I've ever seen.
Well, didn't they want Doug Gottlieb or something?
That adds to the strangeness of it. Yes.
So, funny thing is, I had been on the radio with Doug at the Final Four. They has Radio Row, and I had been out with Doug like on the first day I got there before I went and met with John, and I didn't even know he was trying for the job his dad obviously had been around, and
he was on Jack Hartman's staff for a while.
Yeah, so he knew about it and things like that.
So you're in the coaching profession, and obviously Gene Katie's told you a lot about K-State, but were you really conscious of that lineage of coaches that had come through Manhattan?
No, I did not until I got here, and I was amazed. And I knew Tex was there because Coach talked about Tex, but and I knew a little bit about Coach Hartman, and but then when you walk in and you see, and Cotton Fitzsimmons, you throw him in. It was only 2 years, but you throw him in the mix and what he's about. And Coach Hartman and Jack Gardner, I mean, these are some of the best coaches in the history of the game. So it's pretty amazing. And, I had a chance to be around Tex because of Coach Katie. And, Coach played football here. Katie played football, ran track, and played baseball. And we brought him, and they honored him on the field a few years ago. They showed video of all three. I mean, it's just, you think about that in this day and age, it's incredible. But he really wanted to play basketball. But that was Bob Boozer and all the, and they were really good. And Coach, Tex always told me he wasn't good enough. But he kept stats every game. You see him on the videos. He's got his crew cut, and he had his tie on, and he was keeping stats. And so when he got hurt with the Steelers, came back, he went to Tex Winter and said, I need a job. I'm married. I have a child. And Tex said, I got a basketball job, but no football job. And so he helped him get the Beloit, Kansas high school job. They went to the state. He's still a legend up there. I've known his former players that came to camp at Purdue with their kids for years and years. And every time I go up there, there's somebody that, and then obviously Hutch. But because of that, I got around Tex a lot when he was with the Bulls. Got to go sit and watch the practices, watch film with them, all that stuff. So it was pretty amazing to be around somebody like him.
As we talk about this, I'm just blown away by the circle of coaches that you've touched. This amazing mainstream of the history of college basketball. I mean, you've got to reflect on thinking, what great fortune, but also you took those opportunities, like walking with John Wooden.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing, from Al Mcguire watching practices to being around John Wooden. And then obviously John Wooden was a Purdue grad, so we brought him back and honored him after he retired. So I got to be around him. Probably one of we had 700-800, the biggest place we could find in West Lafayette. And we honored him, and he spoke. And to me, I still, the poetry, all the things he does is just amazing. Now, there wasn't one pin, you couldn't hear anything. Everybody was locked in. It was like going to church. And so I got to be around him more than, with that. And what a gracious man. And, he signed autographs for hours, and just unbelievable. So it was it. And then Tex, and, all these different, Rick Mcguire, work camps with him and stuff like that. So very, very fortunate to be around some great basketball people.
Young sports writer Tim Fitzgerald is in Salina, Kansas, and I'm doing a feature on high school basketball coach Walt Schablum. And Walt was at Wyandotte, and Wyandotte High School was regarded to be the UCLA of high school basketball. And he was touring the country with Wooden doing camps, back in the day.
Lucius Allen.
Yeah. And
he's to UCLA.
Yep. He goes, I said, who can I talk to? And he goes, well, here's John Wooden's home phone number. Yes. So young sports writer gets to call John Wooden at home. And it was really the only time I've been nervous doing an interview.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's all.
But he answered, right?
Absolutely, he answered, and he was gracious as all could be. It was
a high school coach in Wisconsin, Tom Desautels, was in the Hall of Fame, and he got it. My brothers and all of us kind of started. He went and worked his camp for I don't know how many years, and went in his house all the time. Tom just sent me pictures of him sitting in John Wooden's house with his wife and Nell, and you think about that. That's so rare now.
That's really cool.
But but obviously it's showing you how college basketball's changed and the media attention and all the other stuff.
When coaches take over jobs, more often than not, it's what you encountered at Southern Illinois. It's like there's a reason why the job's open. This job came open from a little bit different circumstances, but the first time you walk in that locker room and you start meeting with the players, you're like, I got something to work with here. Yeah. You had to feel pretty good about what you picked up on.
Same thing with Illinois, and I think that was, if you talk to John Currier, one of the reasons I had dealt with transitions at even at Purdue, watching Coach Katie go against Coach Knight. Everyone told Coach Katie. I heard Al Mcguire say, don't take Purdue. I heard Dick Vitale tell Coach Katie, don't take Purdue. You're never going to win. You're never going to outlast him. So going to Illinois and replacing Bill Self, going to Southern Illinois, Rich Herron, who was a local legend, high school, all this. And then coming here where Frank Martin was really loved and did a great job. So I think John felt like, he said, are you up to it again? But, he felt like I had been through it before and knew how to deal with it. And, and my first thing was, one, we did have players, but I wanted to keep them. Mm-hmm. And that, when I got the job at Illinois, I flew to Dallas to see Darren Williams' mom. I did not want him to go back to Dallas. And, I went to Rodney Magruder. I had a meeting. I told John I want to have a one-on-one with Rodney before I meet with the team because I needed him to stay. I had actually... And I've told the story, Chester Fraser was playing in Germany, and he's from Baltimore, D.C. area. Mm-hmm. I called Chester, and I said, can you get a hold of Rodney's people and see what's going on before I take this job? So all of a sudden, Squirrel and Squiggy from Baltimore got a hold of whoever else that knew Rodney, and they, so Rodney, I think when I met with him, felt good because I had reached out. And then that 2 or 3 days later, I went to meet with Rodney's parents in D.C. and just, I think, and they even say it, I've heard them in interviews that, that was a key. And then obviously the rest of the guys, Angel was a key. We ended up losing him a year later, but, to keep him and help win a championship was really good. And but we had a good group, and there was, some of those guys were maybe going to leave at the end. There was some stuff, but we ended up keeping everybody, and it worked out.
Yeah, it did. I tell people, I don't, this sounds slight towards Frank, but I don't think Frank wins a conference championship with that group. It was something about what he left them with and what you added in, and that happens in coaching, and it just was incredible.
Different personalities and different ways of approach and things like that. And Will was leaving for sure. He had already, because I had to call his dad, and it ended up his dad knew Rick Mcguire through this and somebody else who knew me, and they said, well, Weber's good, it's okay. And Shane was leaving, and and Nina was thinking about it, so it just all kind of blended out and worked out, and it was a good, a great group, and obviously, for them, and we struggled early. I mean, it took us. It wasn't beautiful, but at the end, it was pretty. It was a good group, and they played well together and bought in. And it's still the LaSalle game, still one of my toughest losses.
What went wrong in that game?
I really think for the way we won the title, and then we went to the Big 12 and did well, I don't think the guys were ready. And I hate to say that. for LaSalle like they needed to be. And they played small ball before, and you don't have much time to prepare because they play Tuesday night, and then you got to play Thursday.
And they got a game under their belt.
Yeah, and they came out and hit every shot.
Yep.
And then we came back, and man, they were just make one or two plays. But otherwise, we're definitely, I think we're in the Sweet 16. And, who knows what could have happened. But that's the fun of March Madness, and you just can't always predict. And then a few years later, we got a group without Dean Wade, and we're going to the Elite Eight. So, you just can't predict it.
Losing Angel stung. I mean, that really kind of disrupted the rhythm of where you were going, didn't it?
Yeah, when you lose your starting point guard who was all league, and when he did it too, to me, and even his people, I've gone down, guys that he'd been around them, and that high school coaches, things like that. When I've gone to Florida and met, they say, Coach, Angel's best stats of his career were with you.
Exactly.
But he wanted more shots, and he would have got more shots. Rodney was gone, but I really think deep down it was his family, and he had his girlfriend, his mom, his sister, the brothers. They all ended up in Miami area, and I just wish it would have happened a little earlier, and maybe we could have. I still remember getting a call from him, and it was, he was always late coming back from break. Coming from Puerto Rico, and I thought he's calling again, and it was May, and I was on a recruiting trail, and I just said, hey man, think about it for a couple days before you do it. And then I flew back and met with John Currier, it's transferring. He's not the first. There were about 1,000 last year.
Yeah, there really are a lot. College basketball's chaos with all the transfers. You won't say it, but I think there was more at play with Angel than just family.
Well, there was.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But good. I hope it worked out for him. I think he would have been better staying. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think he would have been better staying in rhythm with the program he knew.
So, and I still he texts me off and on, and the coach cheering for you, and obviously Shane, him, J.O., all those guys are Rodney. They're all real close still to this day, and so they appreciate that, what those guys have done and where they've been, and so it's all connected, and
teammates are teammates. You always are teammates.
Yeah, they're brothers. They really are, and they go through the good and the bad, and that helps bring them together.
So you got to kind of retool after a couple years, and then comes the freshman class that ends up kind of coming apart. And I don't want to talk about it a lot because it's Marcus's business, but how difficult was that Marcus Foster season when he really is kind of coming off the rails?
Yeah, it was tough. It was probably one of the most difficult things I've been through as a coach, because you didn't get to coach. You had to deal with so many issues off the court, and he and again, Marcus was back last summer, played with our guys.
Right.
I won't say some of the things it was really one. It made me feel good, and after we beat them, and Creighton, Greg McDermott called me, and I know Greg or texted me, and he just said, Coach, what you did for Marcus when you let him go probably saved his life, and so that it really made me, because it was hard, because I didn't want to lose him, and
well, there's a lot of things I know, and we don't need to talk about. We don't. But at some point, it wasn't about basketball.
Yeah,
it was about saving a young man who was really in a bad spot.
And and again, you make decisions, it was a hard decision, and between John Currier and I, it wasn't. We tried to keep him, and there's no doubt, but it just didn't work out, and he wasn't listening, and so. But I'm happy he went to Creighton, had a great career. We've been able to survive, but he was, as you know, he was pretty good. His freshman year was.
And that was surprising. I mean, you knew he'd be good, but man, he came in and you're like, oh, wow.
Coach Lowry and I, our first recruiting AAU event was, we went and saw Marcus and Jeff Carroll, and there were a bunch of guys. We went down and we were like, man, these guys are really good. Ended up getting recruited, and then we ended up Alvin Brooks. We ended up watching Wes, and Wes's story was unbelievable, from 5'11", to 6'5", and then keep growing after that. So, but we were fortunate and to get them. It was Creighton and us. We were the only two who recruited Marcus, and Jeff Carroll ended up being a really good player. We ended up taking Wes. Jeff Carroll, actually, I think we might have had him, but we ended up taking Wes, so we couldn't take both. So that group was pretty good.
They were. Wes, when you were recruiting him, would you ever thought this guy's going to be in the NBA?
Not when I recruited him, but as it went on,
he
just got better and better. And when he finally focused on basketball, and taking care of himself in the weight room and all that stuff, when Marcus left, they were
tight,
really close. And I just said, Wes, this is your chance. I want you in the NBA, and let's see if Marcus can make it. But I'm just worried about you, and it ended up being a good story.
In some ways, it's weird how life works out. I don't think Wes gets to where Wes is if Marcus stays.
Probably not.
Not. He was just in his shadow, and the shadow left, and he stepped into the light.
He was able to evolve. And I think Wes realized, watching Marcus go through it, he realized, hey, I better focus on basketball. And it clicks for everybody that, now. And the crazy other thing, he hurts his foot and he can't practice. So, we totally reconstructed his shot. I just said, Wes, you got to do something. Because all he could do was walk through and shoot. Mm-hmm. And I said, so you're here with us for 2 hours every day. So we just took him in the other gym every day. It wasn't easy to reconstruct it. We put a patch over his eye because he was left eye dominant. He shot over here. We put a thumb thing because he had his thumb. We had a painted ball. We did all this stuff, and to his credit, he bought in, and he got better and better. And
so he's right-handed but left eye dominant.
Yes.
How the hell do you even shoot a basketball?
Watch it.
That makes sense now. Yeah. And it gets that side spin going.
So we put a patch. I have never done it with a kid, but you go to the store when you get your eye hurt, Walgreens, and we put a patch on, and so he had to look out of his right eye. So it moved the ball over.
That's crazy. And it progresses. It kind of bottoms out, and you start the rebuild with the big group that we all know and love now. But some guy in the media, me, at the end of year 5 said, enough. Let's move on. How bad was that time? And first of all, I'd like to say, well, hell yeah, I was wrong. But that was just, you were 6-10 going to TCU, I think, and then boom, you rattle off 3 wins, beat Baylor in the Big 12 tournament, and you get into the NCAA tournament. It just kind of changed.
Yeah, and they were young and growing, and then we got in the tournament, beat Wake Forest, and we knew there would be a good group, but we had to throw them to the wolves right away. They had to start, Barry at the end of the year. When Cam got hurt, I actually thought, if Cam doesn't get hurt, we're in the NCAA tournament. I really believe that. I think we had a great chance. And he gets hurt. Now you just can't. Now you're trying to. And we beat Oklahoma. That was probably it then. We got the most out of it. They're number one, and we kind of got as much out of them. We just didn't have much left that year. But at the end, Barry was so tired. I always joke with Dean, he fouled on purpose because he didn't want to be in the game. He was so tired.
That makes sense because he had some silly fouls.
Oh, gosh, it would be. And so it took a toll, but they grew and learned. And, I guess to give credit John Currier, he talked a lot about, I watch all these other people, they keep changing coaches and the program goes the other way instead of, and he said, let's try to get some stability. And that group did. And
John Currier leaves in the midst of that 5th season, towards the end, and what you went through at Illinois, that had to be a little unsettling.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your AD.
No.
And
new ADs want their guys.
Well, they want their guys, and they, so it. But we had done well enough, so when Gene came, I was a little more comfortable. But even at Illinois, I mean, you still go back. It's the best 9-year run in the history. Mm-hmm. And they hadn't won an outright Big Ten championship in 50 years, and we won back-to-back and finished second twice, and national championship they had never been to. And so it it is what it is. But yeah, there's in this day and age, the athletic director and the president are so important, and you better have a contract where they can't fire you, because most of the time they want change.
Mm-hmm. As you've coached so many great players, and in the big scope of things, the Dean Wades, Barry Browns, and Cam Stokes may not be in your top whatever, but how special are they to you? Because they were the backbone of rebuilding.
Yeah, there's this, as individuals, young men, great people, to watch their progress. I will, J.O., Shane, when Dean got to campus first day, they said he's a pro. I mean, we all knew it, but would we get it out of him?
Yeah.
And even now I text Dean, please be assertive, please be aggressive, please be an NBA player, you belong. And he gets mad at me, but I just...
He needs to hear it, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's just... And I hope he's a great story at the end and stays healthy. But that group was special. There's no doubt. And Barry, leadership-wise, is just amazing. His determination. I still think he could be like Rodney and end up in the league someday.
I agree.
And
defy the height.
Defy all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he just works so hard. That Elite Eight team, it really can't be explained what happened. You get the upset with Virginia going. It kind of opens up the door. You still got to go through it. And okay, Sweet 16, that's great. Here's Kentucky. And playing mostly without Dean in that game. I remember looking up, and your tallest player on the court might have been X, and their shortest player was taller than him. I'm like, this is just comical looking at this point. How, as you look back over your career, how remarkable was that win over Kentucky?
Yeah, it was special. Obviously, Ernie Barrett. Well,
yeah, he loved
every
it.
time I see him, he hugs me. But no, it was unique. It was special to grind it out, and then for Kansas State get their first win over Kentucky in history, that even made it more special. And it's just sad now you couldn't recover and get Loyola. But Loyola was, again, we talked about K-State, Kansas, Purdue. That's the March Madness. And, and you got to give Loyola, their kid goes 6 for 7, and he's been shooting 20%.
I'd say it reminded me a little of LaSalle. They kind of went small on you, hit shots, and they just kind of had whatever it takes to win.
And I still, and again, I'm not making excuses, but we got back to the hotel. It was 2 a.m. after Kentucky.
Yep.
And I said you can meet with their families. The fans are all sitting there, but we hadn't even eaten dinner yet. So now it's 3:34 in the morning, and then the whole next day. It's tough, and I've said stuff to the NCAA. It really puts you in a bind. The other team's probably been in their hotel for 6-7 hours before you get there.
Yeah, same thing happened with the other Elite Eight recently.
Yes.
Late game, right to the early game, coming out then 2 days later. I don't want to say you're restarting, but that group was so important to what happened at K-State. But you've got good pieces in place. This is going to be a very interesting season. You're back to kind of the basics here with some of the stuff. Teaching this defense can't be easy with a bunch of freshmen.
Yeah, it's new, it's interesting, and the good thing compared to Dean and Barry and Cam, we have 3 guys that have really 5 that have been through it, 3 that have really played, experience, but now can they become the guys?
Yeah, step up.
And be, instead of the role guys, they're the guys. That'll be a key. And then their success, I think will help the freshmen. And then they don't have to have the pressure on them, and they can build and go, come along slowly. So it'll be interesting. We're new, we're interesting. It's a good group. I think they have a good culture. They played their butts off. Now can we figure out roles and to me, who's going to make the plays when it counts? Because that's what college basketball, and especially in the Big 12 where the plus-minus in games is 4 or 5 points, who's going to make the plays when it counts and execute and step up? So that's what we'll have to wait and see.
Coming off a Big 12 title. Dude, you're picked 9th. How the hell does that happen?
With 3 guys that started or played a lot of minutes, I'm not sure. But I think it shows you the depth of the league.
It does,
which is unbelievable. I really think everybody has questions on every team. You could look at these guys or whatever and say, how. But I know Cartier and Xavier and Mac are good enough. Now can they do it? It's like Dean in the NBA. I know he's good enough, but is he going to go do it and get, so they're, Dean needs the opportunity. These guys are going to have the opportunity. Now can they step up?
Well, my conspiracy theory is there's too many Texas voters on those polls. they got to pick their teams to keep their people happy. Or
Well, I think Baylor's really good. Obviously, Kansas has a chance. I think West Virginia, it'll be interesting. Their guards, they do have big guys. And then after that, I think it's Oklahoma State could surprise people because I know they were 10th, but they got everyone back and experience. Chris Beard talks about it all the time. Stay old. If you can stay old and experience, it sure helps.
That's why the one and done thing doesn't work.
No,
I don't think it works.
That's right. You're right.
They're pretty good basketball players, but
yeah.
Okay, so we end all of our Power Chats with an overtime here. It's something we've done on our podcast for years. But I asked one of our users on the site to ask you 5 questions, quick questions. Exhausted Nihilist is the username. I love that name. What was your first car? The first car Bruce Weber owned?
A Mercury Monterey, no power steering, looked like a tank. With the paint job of Ernie Sherrod. What was that paint thing where they sprayed it on for $49?
Lord. That's a sweet ride, Coach. Do you have a favorite superhero? Are you a superhero guy?
Oh, not really, but obviously growing up, Superman was the one we watched.
It's old school. You got it. You're a Milwaukee guy. Favorite beer?
Well, I grew up on Miller Lite. That was that you got to understand. People, I had beer when I was a little kid. That was just part of our culture. But you had Miller Lite. But now my son-in-laws, my kids, my daughters are getting me expanding. Boulevard I really like.
Yeah, really good.
I did get my buddies from Wisconsin came down and brought Spotted Cow.
Spotted Cow,
Mcguire, it's pretty good.
My wife would leave me for Spotted Cow beer. She loves it. Being a Wisconsin guy, do you have a favorite cheese?
Well, I love the cheese curds. If you get fresh cheese curds that squeak when you bite them, there's
squeak
nothing.
When you bite them.
Oh yes, and they just came right from the factory, and they're the best.
I hope our friends at Alma Cheese have heard that. They can get you some of those. Who is the most famous person from Milwaukee not named Bruce Weber?
Wow. I don't know. There's a lot of athletes that have come through that, but they weren't from Milwaukee, so.
Want to be one of the old beer guys? Pabst Mansion?
I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. And, there's, who's from Milwaukee? The announcer for the Brewers that's done all the Miller Lite commercials. That is, oh my goodness. Bob Uecker.
Thank you, Tom.
Bob Uecker is a Milwaukee native.
There you go.
Went to high school in Milwaukee, and he'll tell you how bad a baseball player he was and played for the Braves. And to growing up listening to those games and his stories, it could get you through long drives in the car. It was great.
That's the best baseball announcers, the guys that have baseball but have fun with it. So, Coach, I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Best of luck this season. It's going to be a very interesting and I think a fun ride.
It is interesting. I think we have a chance. We might go through some growing pains.
You will. Yeah.
And, but sometimes that happens and teams come together.
I'd like you to know that I took the bullet for the staff and I am going to cover you in Las Vegas. I sacrificed, as far as I can tell, I'll be the only media member there, but I will be there because if you schedule Las Vegas, by golly, I'll be there.
Well, to me, it's an interesting game. I thought we needed a road game, and I didn't want to put it after Marquette and between Mississippi State, and so because I want a road game. One, it's good for your RPI or whatever they call it, net rating. Now you got to go on the road, and so I don't know if we put it too early, but we're going to learn about our guys.
Very good. Well, that does it for our debut of season 1.2 of the Power Chat. We'll be back next week with another personality from K-State Sports.